So a couple other fires. I know we talked about them briefly when you and I talked on the phone, but do you remember when they first started the RIT companies?
Oh,
This is before we had rat companies.
I remember. Right.
They were just dispatching companies as a RIT, and
Bob
they're usually
Cancoli was there that day.
usually engine companies.
It's on Laidlaw. It was a fire on Laidlaw.
Rapid intervention team.
Yeah,
or
rapid
like that?
intervention team. So we were dispatched as the RIT.
Before Oscar,
Yeah.
the fire before that, we had a
was
fire
Laidlaw.
on Laidlaw.
Yeah.
It was snowing out that night.
Yeah.
And we were the RIT team. And every time we'd work with Cancoli, who's a great officer.
Oh, yeah, he's my classmate.
He's
Side
outstanding.
story.
Right?
When I went to Unit 1 on Ladder 20, he was my officer, and I learned so much from him about how to be a trucker in that 2 years.
He's just a
or whatever I was
machine,
with him.
right?
He was awesome.
Yeah. And
anyway,
well, you can keep going with it.
I just remember, I think it was Spence Dannemiller that fell.
Well, we were outside of the window. We were right in front of the house. We're the RIT team, so we were staging right in front of the house is where they stage us. It was Cancoli, Chris, and myself, and all I remember is that you dove through the window, right?
Yeah.
And then I dove through the window to get Chris.
Out? Or in?
I saw we were watching the companies work inside, and the windows wasn't like these regular. They were the like the older house. They have the long windows, and the window was already out. And I just talking about ADD and how things slow down. I saw a firefighter start to fall through the floor. And so I jumped through the window to grab the firefighter.
So then I saw
and
Chris.
And it was like, Cuss saw me, and so I'm catching the firefighter.
Same window?
Same window, yeah. Well,
so like I'm catching, I think it was Spence Dannemiller, if I recall. I'm catching Spence, and then Cuss is catching me.
To keep everybody, nobody fell through the floor.
No, but it was just, Cuss talked about it, and he's like, just, you're there, and the next thing I know, you're through the window, and I was through the window.
It's like crazy, right?
Yeah, I know.
And it actually stopped him from going through the floor.
Yeah.
And Cancoli's just like...
He's like, where the fuck did you guys go?
Well, we had multiple fires with Conks when there would be, when he was there. I mean...
I made a lot of fires.
Did you make the one where we had the lady, she was at the bottom of the steps with her arm up on the windowsill? I think I was covering exposure, and then he found the victim. We went inside the back door. We kicked in the back door. He had to be on the truck because he's searching. You and I in the engine. Vicky Kudson came in half the day.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. She did not check the water.
This is why Cuss remembers all these.
She didn't check the water in the pumper?
Well, she didn't check that we had we're our 5-inch short section. Like we have a half section.
I do, yes. So she had trouble,
So it's a pretty good layoff, but it wasn't, there was another hydrant or whatever. Mm-hmm. So she pulled off a whole nother 100 feet. And so we ran out of water.
Yeah.
There's an actual victim that we're pulling out. And actually, because I remember searching for her son forever because it was before the cameras.
The victim's son?
The victim's son, well...
Yeah, I do remember that fire.
There was some situation prior to that where somebody died or something in that family, or I can't remember the details to it, but I remember that she just made it to the bottom of the steps. And the neighbors kept saying, she's got kids in there or whatever. So we would go in and search. And they were like, we know they're in there. So we go back up and search again. But we got her out. And I remember that as soon as we got her out, because it's just dead, a body's dead weight. It's like slimy.
Yeah, you can't.
The whole thing.
There's nothing to grab.
I want to say that you and I were covering the exposure one in. And do you remember, or maybe this is two separate fires I think I'm putting together. Because we had the one where we went in the back door the one time. Similar to like this one. I think when I heard that, I helped Cancoli get the victim, and Cancoli and I carried her out. Because I remember as soon as we got her outside, she was probably already dead, but he let go of her, and then all of a sudden her head hit the steps, and we went down the steps.
Oh, yeah. It was like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, which doesn't look good when you're outside, but she didn't make it in the first place. But we had that other one where we went in the back, and heavy fire. I think I'm putting two fires together. But another one where we went in the back and you and I were in there and we couldn't get low enough, but that whole room's going for broke. I think it was with JR that time. Do you remember this fire?
I don't know if it's the same fire that I have in my mind, but go ahead. Is that the one where you were like, what do you think?
I might have, because you and I were ripping through
Yeah, and you're like, what do you think? But did we have a hose line? I thought the one that...
This one we had a hose line, and it was like we busted in the back door. But these two houses are very similar. That's why I think I'm putting two together.
Maybe so.
Because we used to fight a lot of fire. I mean, sometimes we go 2 or 3 fires in a day.
That's true.
We had a fire with Jason Plogman's first. He was sick that day too. Do you remember? He was lieutenant, picked up lieutenant, and it was off of it's Coleraine, but it was on the other side of. So 29s were there. Mm-hmm. It's above White Castle. There was a street that's Coleraine on the other side of the highway. So like Coleraine, it's a broken street, and then Colerane's over on this side.
Right.
Well, these two houses, I think it was one or two. I think it was one, and then caught the other one on fire. But it's going for broke too. And Chris and I got up inside of there. And the problem with that fire is we went offensive
and then defensive.
And then offensive and then defensive. And then finally went out and put it out. But they kept, muscle look bad from the outside, so they pulled us out, put us back in, which is really dangerous to do.
I do remember that.
But Chris and I are up on the third floor. We made it up there. You remember we're up and it's tight. And Chris and I are in a room, probably the size of that bathroom or something. And this fire, it's a balloon construction. And it looked like Hades in there, man. It looked like hell. The fire is going from it's like a fireplace. I mean, it was just nonstop.
I do remember that, and I think that's the one where you're like, "What do you think?"
Yeah, that's the one I think we're talking about because
we didn't have I don't think
we didn't have a hose or something.
I didn't think we had a hose line. I think we were just up there to search or something.
I think we were trying to get one. I think we were like, we need a hose.
And it was one of those where no hose line. And we're opening up the wall, and like you said, and it's just fire and just fire and fire and fire. And Cuss is like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "I think we need to get the fuck out of here."
But then they pulled us out and put us back in and pulled us out. But it was cool to watch. Oh, yeah. I remember we just sat there and we were in awe of just watching this fire just rolling through the walls.
We had opened up the walls, and there eventually, like you said, you see it slowly just keep developing and going up the wall. And next thing you know, it's going over us and shit. And we're like, it's like, God damn.
We sometimes can't see it until. But this one was like that. We had one with Growl, and I think you were probably there on that one where it was in a knee wall, and we were looking for it, and Growl brought the guy in. And we're walking in the house, and it's this clear.
Yeah.
And Growl's up top talking to him about it, whatever.
Yeah, it was
and all
all
of a sudden,
in the knee walls.
He takes the pipe pull and busts through the ceiling, and all of a sudden, the whole thing is fully involved, man. Like, and I'm like, Growl, he's got to go. I'm like, dude, you need to go.
Yeah.
And we escorted the guy out, and next thing you know,
it all out.
It's up there, it's down the thing in the knee wall, and we were chasing that thing and fighting that fire for hours, man.
You one of the many multiple alarm fires we had up on Hawaiian Terrace, because Hawaiian Terrace, there's no fire break in the attic space on the length of those buildings.
Right.
And so you get an attic fire and you're just going from apartment to apartment to apartment.
Oh yeah, that's remember the one time you and I we were like
it was one of the best
we
times
did everything.
I've ever
we
had.
smashed into one door.
Fun.
That's the one.
So fun because the fire's all above you. Until you get the line, you're like, you ready? And you start pulling, and then it's.
And there was a fire not long before that up there. You remember? It was like they had a fire like 3 or 4 weeks, or maybe even less than that, like 2 weeks before it. Yeah. And then we had that one, and it was all over the place, like you said.
Yeah, so fun.
And same thing, it was like clear, and then you bust through the thing, and all of a sudden it's fire everywhere,
I hated it. So I was on the only fires I've ever made up there. I was on a truck. I hated making fires up there for that reason because you always had these long ass trench cuts.
Oh yeah.
And it just you go through one saw and you go through another saw and it's like Jesus Christ, I'm beat. That's when I was in shape. That's when I was young and in shape.
Yeah, you're constantly trying to get ahead of it, and
it was.
It's something you could talk about with those is you could get easily complacent, and that's a problem with those fires because you make so many false alarms to some of those addresses where it just ends up being nothing, but you just don't know that one time where all of a sudden you're like.
I've had a couple fires now being on the heavy rescue where it's been that situation where maybe the fire was in the kitchen because of balloon frame construction or what have you, and Chief's like, well, no, we still got heavy smoke coming through the eaves or whatever. You get up there, clear as day, just like this.
Right.
And you have to tell the newer guys, like, don't pull anything yet. We got to get a hose line up here. Do not open that up because where it's at.
Black
like do not do anything until we get a hose line up here. And they're like, well, why? I'm like, you're going to find out. You just wait.
it's going to be hell as soon as we start pulling
gonna
it open.
Yeah, knee walls, same thing. Like do not open that up till we have a hose line up.
And those are dangerous because they're hard to find and it chases
You gotta
it.
dig
And
it
it's
out.
like,
How many times have you gotten lost in fires?
Oh, very common still.
it is.
And it's funny you say that because I'm very bad about using a tick. I just don't. I know I should, particularly on the heavy rescue. One of our tasks is to help search, and I've always just tried to use natural instinct or feel my way, and I'm very bad about using a tick to this day.
I wouldn't say I'm bad about it, but I kind of want to save it. You've only got so much battery life,
and
I want
not rely on it.
Yeah. I don't want to. If I don't absolutely need it, I don't want to waste it, because if I suddenly really need it for my own safety, that's not when I want it to go dead.
When I've used them, and this is probably why I don't really use them on a fire, is because when I use them down doing at the hi-fi with the recruits, they fog over.
Yeah.
It's just
We had a fire together that
they're great,
fire.
but I think they're a
are.
pain in the butt too. And for me, I've just not been.
we had the Fergus
Just don't
fire,
use 'em.
which is a big fire because of the Senate Bill 5 thing.
Oh yeah, the Fergus fire.
And
yeah,
and we were not together in that one. We were doing two separate jobs. I was on the truck and
I was on the engine.
you were on the engine that day. And I was we kicked in the back door. We had 2 live victims when we pulled up. They're standing there. You see them, and you get Potsy's telling them to go to the back of the building, and you just assume because he's telling them to go to the back of the building that we're going to find them at that side of the thing, but.
They were cut off. The fire was in the front room, and it was rolling out the windows on the side and the front, and there was a porch. So they were protected from the fire by the porch, but the fire was already going up the stairwell that was in the middle of the house.
Yeah.
So there was the side door where the stairwell was at, and the back door, and they were already cut off.
Because
they were already cut off from the fire, and we didn't know that at the time. And smoke is pushing past them as they're hanging out the windows out the front.
Yeah.
And Potsy was yelling at them, "Hold on, they're coming! Get to the back of the house if you can."
Yeah,
And
so
they
that's
were
in
cut
your
off.
mind as you're going, because you're listening to everything go, and you're looking. And we smashed, Joe and I smashed, I think I smashed in the back door. One of the 2 of us did. And there's a stairwell there. Well, usually in these buildings, they're stacked. So you got one going to the basement, and the other one's going upstairs right there. Well, this is not like that. The stairwell going downstairs was right as soon as we walked in. It was like a kitchen area, and then the other stairwell to go upstairs was all the way up by the fire. So it was not the way it normally is. And this is when you talk about the camera. He had the camera, and at that time only one of us had it. He had it.
Yep.
And I kept saying, "Cap, what do you see?" And he couldn't see. He's like, "I can't see anything." And Potsy's on the radio going, "Do you have them yet?" Well, shit, we weren't even on the second floor yet. And he just kept saying, "You got them." Well, the pressure's on, right? And we're hitting like the pantry, the bathroom, and you're in there not knowing if it's the pantry.
Yeah,
or the
right,
bathroom.
exactly. And you're back here, and they're up here, and you think you're making progress to get to them.
Finally, we found that second stairwell. We get upstairs. You're supposed to stay together. Well, you can't. If you got live victims, you're looking for the victims. So we split up. He's the one that ended up finding them and brought him down that stairwell.
Who did?
Joe Robertson. Okay. There's a long hallway that went down. And like I said, we split up. In my mind, I went this way because we were told that that's where all the victims are. Like he's going, go to the back of the building. So I'm like, well, they're right here, right? Like, well, they didn't. They dropped right where the fire was.
They dropped in front of that window that they were at.
Yeah. Joe found them. And JR must have been up by him or something. So the 2 of them helped them get out the window. And by that time, heavy rescue, it was a total group effort getting them out. Dead weight. I mean, there's pictures to show you exactly. I mean, the pictures are the epitome of what we do, I really think. Like Zoe Quinn looks like a baby doll coming down.
Yep.
And the great-grandfather was like shirts off. And he looks like one of those mannequins that we drag around the fire building. Well, so we end up resuscitating them, bringing them up and the whole thing, but the camera was no good. It would have been good in that other situation when the neighbors were going, "Hey, there's kids in there, can you go find them?" Well, that would have been, that's when we needed the camera. Right. But you can't rely on it.
No.
It's really our senses.
Yeah.
And it really helps, like when Chris and I we work together all the time. Like, just like Steve Owen said, he's like, I can't believe you guys just went up and did it. Well, we did it so
Didn't give it a
much,
thought.
it wasn't even a thing. And we help each other orientate. Like, sometimes one gets disoriented and another one doesn't. So it's easy to work together.